Okay, I'm back now. You guys have obviously had to wait for the play out and the advert. So, don't know whether you're going to get an advert, so we shall see. If anybody can let me know when we're live. I'm not altogether sure I'm going to see any difference in my preview, depending on whether it's the play out or the input servers that are having a problem. But I am live. If somebody can tell me. You may, I guess, have a problem with the adverts playing. So I'm more or less just talking a lot of nonsense at the moment, just to see if give the stream time to come back. Okay. Maybe everybody switched. I can try another ingest. Okay, you're going to try a reload, see how that goes. It now looks like I'm buffering as well on my. Okay. Let me try a reload on my own stream. So I'm going to carry on talking. That means I'm going to get another chat window. So let me choose that, close that one down and start another. Oh dear. And now I've got my own adverts, of course. Right. Well, of course the adverts always play perfectly, don't they? Doesn't matter whether whatever is happening, the adverts are always perfect. Okay, now adverts just finished, so is my stream is right. I'm getting buffering as well. It looks like it's the output servers then today. I'm not getting. Now I'm getting continuously buffering as well. Sounds like it was working better when I was ingesting into London. If it's going to carry on the buffering for everybody, then there's not going to be a lot of point in me actually broadcasting it, is there really, if nobody's going to be able to watch? I'll probably continue on just so that I do some more work on the piece, but it's not a very good thing for you guys. I'm not dropping frames at all. So even over DCED, not familiar. Okay. Yeah, there's severe buffering going on. And yet, as I say, I'm not dropping a single frame. Yeah, that kind of points, the fact that you're web proxying kind of points to the output servers being the problem with Free and myself being. I'm not sure where you are, Bubbles, actually. I can't recall. But Free and I are both in the UK, so. Yeah, mine's doing the same thing, Free. Hey. You know, I've just discovered I can't type and talk at the same time. It's kind of looking as though anybody in Europe isn't able to certainly watch me. You're going to now try watching your own stream, Faith. That sounds like a clever trick. So not only have we got problems watching it, you've got problems with your internet as well, Bubbles. It's not a really successful day, is it? Here I was looking forward to doing some work, and I'm not going to. Not what's going to be happening. I noticed there appears to be a few people in stream. If anybody else, it seems that we're anybody who's in stream, we're experiencing problems where people in Europe certainly appear to be having problems with receiving the stream. I am broadcasting with 0 drop frames, and we've tried it now into 2 ingest servers, but people in Europe, when they've tried and view it from Europe, seem to be having a problem. Free there has just tried something which is he's hosted me, and in doing so can watch his own stream. Yeah. Alright. One of the tricks here might be for anybody who's having a problem, then if 3D Bloke who is hosting me isn't experiencing buffering problems in doing so, might I suggest you watch his rebroadcast, but you'll need to stay in my chat room, otherwise you won't be able to talk to me. And so you can pop chat out of the window, and then click on 3D's Bloke, go to his channel and watch me on his channel. That might help, and I shall carry on. And maybe something will sort itself out, but if that's a usable workaround, and thank you, Free, I hope you don't mind me pointing people at your channel, and I know that means at 10 o'clock you're going to drop the host, so I shall have to stop before then if everybody's still watching through your channels, but dear. Oh yes, or log into chat from an IRC client if you've got one as well, and I shall carry on. Hopefully we can get somewhere. Maybe with a bit of luck tomorrow night. Tomorrow night things will work, and hopefully you don't have the problem, Free. I'm assuming you're streaming this evening. If you're not, let me know, but I shall just have to carry on. My preview window flashing at me is annoying me. I might stop it in a minute just to tell it to go away. The means I am not happy with this image at all. I really am not happy with this image. Yep. Just think you'll have to have a canned message here. Watch me on 3D Bloke's channel. For one night only. A special hosting. Okay. Now, there is something wrong with this image. I don't know what it is that's wrong with this image, but there's something wrong with this image. So I am going to try and do something to fix it, which when I don't know what's exactly wrong with it is going to be hard, but there's something about the angles, or the positioning is right. The position of everything is right. I know it's right. It's the fur. It's I keep mentioning the fur has to go in the right direction, and if it doesn't, it throws off what it looks like, and that's what's happening. The fur is making the face look the wrong shape, and I don't actually know how it is really. Oh dear. I think I'm going to have to try and bring the darkness of the whole area is wrong. The nose doesn't look right. I know the nose shape here isn't quite right. Ah dear. I am kind of considering whether to continue to try and do this or whether to abandon it and start again. And I'm kind of loath to abandon it because I've got a few hours in this now. But there again, I can put a lot more hours into it and it still not be right. And then I'll have wasted even more. It's one of the interesting dilemmas. Okay. There is something really weird going on with Twitch tonight then, isn't there? In terms of the broadcasting. I don't think there's a tournament or anything on, is there? I don't recall seeing anything, but... nothing that should be eating the bandwidth that I know about. I don't know, Noxil, as to whether I'm going to read it. I'm kind of loath to do it. I think what I'm probably going to do is I'll go through this stream and see if at the end of it I can get something that's starting to look as though it's right. And if anybody sees anything obvious, then please let me know. If by the end of the stream I still can't get something that I'm happy with, then what I might do, I think, is abandon it and either pick a different picture. Because one of the difficulties I've got with the reference image is seeing where his actual fur goes. It's quite a dark, it's a high contrast image, but the lighting is such that you can't see the fur. And fur direction, and whilst I know where it's supposed to go, the problem is I'm then straying into the territory of doing what I know rather than what I see, and I'm and I've potentially been guilty of that already, because you can't see fur in this side of his face at all. It's just black. And I've been working with a couple of reference images, including Junior here, because all cats have a roughly similar fur direction, but the face structure is slightly different. Felix here has a flatter sort of face, especially the angle he's got it at here, but he's got a more of or Junior's got more of a pointed muzzle than Felix has. And I'm just not translating the references very well, and I think so I've been more doing what it should look like, if you see what I mean, rather than what it actually does look like, and then that's where it's probably going wrong. But we'll see. I'm not going to abandon it, I don't think, just yet. It's a risk that I might I'm going to waste more time, but at this stage it's maybe worth that risk, just to see if we can recover it. Could be to do with the colours. For the whole of this one, I found it really difficult to work with the first pass of colour. With it looking so light, I just haven't been able to see the visualisation. Oh, that's a pity. What were you going to start tonight, Bubbles? Because you finished your Zerg, was it, or the creature that you birthed yesterday? Or was it the day before? Oh, blimey, this week's going fast. I can't keep track of things. What day is it today? It's only Monday. Blimey, it's only Monday, and already it feels like I've been here all week. If that makes sense. Oh dear. Making a sword. Oh, that sounds interesting. If anybody is watching is having problems with the stream restarting, I'm sorry. It seems to be something Twitch related. I'm not dropping any frames whatsoever, and we've now tried a couple of streaming to a couple of the Twitch ingest servers, and both are causing the same problem. It would seem to be which server you connect to receive the picture this time, or receive the stream. So if you have the ability to proxy, or you're in the US, you may not have the problem. If you're a non-European proxy, you may be okay. There is a possibility if you click on 3D blog there and switch to, he is rebroadcasting me, he's hosting me. So if you switch to his stream, you may not experience a problem. Some people do or have, and some people are not. But it may help. And unfortunately, there's not a lot else we're able to do about it. Any particular sword, or were you thinking the one that comes to mind is Zelda for some reason? One of Link's swords or something like that. And what do you think you're going to be streaming tonight, Free? Assuming it's good enough to stream, the Twitch is good enough to stream. Are you going to do some more of the Xenomorph, or are you going to catch up on some of the other pieces? Yeah. Despite the fact that this tool isn't fantastically hot, relatively speaking, i.e. I'm not going to burn wood, and despite the fact that it's relatively low power, it still makes a real smell if you get hair on it, and that doesn't matter whether it's cat hair or human hair. There's a bit of a niff around here at the moment. Okay, that's so just trying to make this look better. Yeah, that's about right. If I can make the nose look more lifelike, then or more realistic, then I might just stick with it and see what I can do. Just darkening the things off is making it slightly better, but still not great. If I do abandon this, it's probably going to be the very first time I've ever done that with a pyrographic piece. Yeah, that's too shiny. Okay. Let's put a bit of texture into this. So really just using the heat now of the tool to create a texture. It's not going to go much darker than this, so I can afford to be fairly quick in doing this. I don't need to worry about browning off the wood. Just trying to put a bit of texture in there because it looked too flat, especially with all the rest of the texture elsewhere. Say just running the tool over it flat as I did before, just to create the colour. Didn't preclude me from texturing it afterwards, which is what I'm doing now, and it will break up that flat surface look. I do need to make the shading a little bit more consistent, but that's something I don't need to worry about just at the moment. Okay. It's almost as though his nose is in totally the wrong place. Oh, yeah, that was a good guess, Bubbles. Sorry, I wasn't looking up. Oh yes, of course. I've forgotten about the freehand piece that you started. It looked quite interesting, actually. Did that. It looks like his nose is in the wrong place. It's not. I can measure this from the eyes. It kind of looks like his nose ought to be over here. It's not. I know it's not. So if he's no right, let's see what we can do about this. I know that that edge there is partly to blame with that. Okay, well we'll throw away. I'm going to throw. I was trying to really stay fairly close to his head pattern. I know it's not quite, but it's his face pattern. The nose looks as though it's been squashed. And that's causing me a problem. I think I am working out how I can do something about it. It's this area around here that's throwing the nose off. Although it's accurate to the pattern, this is one of those, or fairly accurate to the pattern, it's one of those circumstances where the pattern is, it's one of those circumstances where you don't follow what you see. You do something different. I'm going to try something. I've got a sharp knife out here. Oh, it's actually a very blunt sharp knife, because this scalpel blade has been in here for about 6 months. But I'm not going to get a new one out just yet. So what I'm going to do is I am going to try scraping some of this colour away. Now this may or may not turn out to be very successful. But you're seeing something that I have never done before, which is try and correct a piece. So I have no idea whether it's going to work or not. We are finding out together. It's kind of salt and pepper around here, and that's Are we seeing that? Yeah. Okay. So now, anybody who wondered what happens when you make a mistake, this is the sort of thing that we end up doing. Trying to scrape the colour off. Now I'm going to be relatively lucky here in some ways because this is cat fur, and we've got a texture on the surface which is in lines. And I'm kind of scraping along the lines. I'm actually not worried about as much about doing this as I would do if I was trying to do something that was really flat, like just a plain smooth colour, because I'd be disrupting the surface. Here the surface is all over the place to start with, so it could prove interesting. I'm now just looking for a paintbrush. I've got a tiny one here. I don't know what I did with the one I was using the other night, but I just want to brush the scrapings off. I don't want to use my fingers to brush them off, because if I do that, I'm likely to smudge them into the surface. So is that making the nose look a little bit better? Base of his eye, that's about there. Yeah. Let me see if I can actually scrape more of the material away. So we go whiter, and then I can add colour back in. Just around here. So that's going to swirl around his eye. So we're going to come round in this angle here. I could get some sandpaper out as well, but what's likely to happen there is I'll smooth out these scrapes, rather the texture, rather than adding to it effectively with this knife. So I'm going to stick with the knife. Also, I'm likely to be less precise as to where I'm trying to scrape. Do have to be a bit careful though. I am roughing up the surface. And this is a fantastic way of blunting scalpels as well. Okay. So, does that make it look a bit better? It makes it look a bit better. Still doesn't look fantastic. No, still looks a little squashed. I'm doing the artist thing with the measuring stick. So that's about there. And this is where I may disturb the surface texture of the wood, but actually let's try something else just down here. A straight Cornell Garden plastic eraser. Should just have enough friction to drag some of the colour off rather than scraping it. Let's see if that works. Not very well. Okay, so there you go. Something learned. Plastic erasers don't really erase pyrography really well. Sorry if you don't like the sound of fingers on blackboards, because that's kind of the sound you're getting at the moment here, if it's being picked up by the mic. I kind of want to do it like, you know, like I think it should look like, and I'm extremely tempted, even though I know it's wrong. What? Where's my pencil? I should really be kind of explaining my thought process here, but I'm not altogether sure I have a thought process. I just drew... No, that doesn't look right there. I just drew it. I was trying to just draw the edge of the white bit of the muzzle. I was thinking of perhaps shading underneath it just to give me a different reference, but that's that wants to be that's the sort of the there's like a where the two sides of the muzzle meet just in the top of the jaw, you know, like your top lip is just here. This probably wants to come down a bit further towards that. They almost meet on the reference, and this area here then comes down further around there. If I make sure the nose is at the right angle, which is about there. Maybe that nose is a bit too high. Really difficult to see it, but come down. So I'm now sketching on my piece here. All of you people who also do art, any suggestions as to what I'm not getting right here will be gratefully accepted. There is something about the positioning of something. So that's his. So that's going to be the angle of the nose as well. So So I'm just doing there is going from the eyes, just dragging the same angle down. That should be the same angle as the nose is at, because your face is roughly sort of symmetrical, if you see what I mean. It's like your mouth is roughly at the same angle as your two eyes are if you drew a line between them. So if that's the top of his nose, we've got a highlight in there. The nose comes down to there. It's virtually black enough not to worry about the nostrils, so we won't. Yes. Now the nose itself is just sort of skin, but it's quite thick skin, a bit like the paw pads, and that just disappears into the fur. But it kind of disappears into the fur on all sides, but just down the sides of his nose, it's sort of more. It disappears at more of an angle, is what I'm trying to say. So let's see if we can get this about right there. I can then put the highlight in afterwards, because that's easy enough to just scrape it off again. I'll get away with that. And once you've done some, like here you can see I'm now trying to erase my pencil mark, and I'm actually succeeding. That's one of the problems when you start scraping the wood. You get problems like that. I can scrape it off again, but the more scraping I do, the more it digs in. Right, let's see if we can make this nose something like a right shape. I don't want to be too sharp on the edges. Down the side maybe. But across the top, soft transition. Yeah. Right, I'm almost carbonising this wood. I'm going to try and make it really dark. Not quite hot enough to actually carbonise it, but I'm getting close. I can smell the wood, which is quite a pleasant smell. But if you're allergic to campfires, then it probably wouldn't do you any good. Now, interestingly, what you probably can't see at this end is where this wood is really dark here. It's actually shrinking away from the tip. It's when it cools down, I'll run my finger over it. I'll actually be able to feel it lower. So the scraping has done some of that, and actually the scraping roughing up the surface has actually meant this has gone darker really smoothly, shall we say. So that's an interesting thing to remember for the future. If I want a really dark, flat, smooth texture across something, it might be something to consider scraping the piece of wood first. So even out of problems, do you learn something? And interestingly, when I'm looking at this here, this looks like a really dark red. which is obviously just a lighting effect because brown obviously contains red. Now then, I need to transition this without a hard edge. So I am just passing the tool over the wood fairly rapidly. I don't actually want to make it go as brown all in one go. In fact, I kind of want to make it look as though there's a curve from the top of the nose down. Which I will do with the level of shading that I get into this. That angle still isn't right. Apologise, I'm not reading chat at the moment. Oh, that's okay. Nah. Nah. Not yet. Not yet. Still something off. This is actually where, when I've been asked about, I must be really patient to do this, and I've kind of said no, you don't. You just get into the pyrography. It's always making progress, and therefore you don't need patience. At this moment in time, I need patience. Let's try and work out what it is. One of the things I'm kind of, I am almost prepared just to say, nah, well, it didn't work, try again. I've got another of these plaques. But I kind of would like to know what it is. I'd like to understand it in my own mind so that I don't make the same mistake again, or that if I do make the mistake, I can correct it. And if I can correct it now, which is one thing that's kind of driving me to keep trying, is that I'm going to learn something from it. But I am seriously struggling as to what I'm learning from it, which is not a lot at the moment. And there's kind of a real temptation to sort of just, like I'm doing here, do another bit, just because it might go away. It might magically just vanish. I don't really seriously think it will, and I know I'm going to have to keep coming. I'm coming back to it, but there is kind of I want to deny there's a problem going on here. And it's almost a case of how long can I do that? Can I do it long enough for it not to be a problem anymore? that way. So I'm kind of, I guess, fiddling around the edges at the moment. I'm kind of hoping that if I can get the face or maybe the nose around here just to look right, then I might get away with this. Any votes from you guys? Should I abandon this? Should I keep trying? Okay, sort of. Okay, I am here really just taking some of the colour off, just from the perspective of going to reapply it again really. Maybe I have positioned this centre section in the wrong place, because his face isn't actually Junior. If you look at his face, he's reasonably symmetrical in terms of the pattern. Felix isn't. Felix is asymmetric. And I'm wondering if that's thrown off my perception of the centre. So, the centre is between the eyes, which I've kind of drawn it here, but it sort of should be about here. And I'm wondering if that's what... if I was logically thinking about it, I've been trying to follow the shapes that I see, but I'm wondering if I've unconsciously moved the centre over to the centre of the dark patch rather than where it kind of should be. So between his eyes and his for some reason doing that makes him look like a bear. So his nose is going to be about that sort of angle, which puts the centre there, which is about how, well, it's sort of roughly where I was going, but I was to the right of it, and it protrudes slightly in front of the eye. So I think possibly that's what's caused at least the front of it. For some reason he now looks like a bear rather than a cat. So just scraping colour off. I'm almost drawing now with the scraper. Just because I think if I don't, it kind of doesn't matter. If this doesn't work, then I will probably be abandoning the piece anyway and starting again. So that one doesn't, the left side doesn't look too bad, apart from they should go that way more. Hairs are not quite in the right direction, but that's that. So I don't know if you can see the slightly lighter marks. Yeah, you can. Kind of thinking that that's probably the best sort of angle. Mind you, I've got another side to this piece, so maybe I won't have to throw the piece away but just reuse the wood. Now if I do that, then that puts the eyes about that distance apart. Now I am going to see more of this eye than that eye because of the angle, but am I doing that? I've got a 3/4 view of his face, or a 4/5 view of his face. You can tell that I am really indecisive because it's the only time I do that with my fingers. This is I am struggling, really struggling as to what I need to do with this. Everything just looks. Everything looks. Then by looks I mean looks horrible. Doesn't look right. Does not look right at all. And I do not like it. I do not like it. I do not like failing. Or at least failing, well, I don't like failing full stop, but I don't mind if I have tried. Now if that's the position of, but that's, I am sorry, I am talking a little bit of a shorthand in doing this, which I occasionally am doing these days, and the shorthand is just a way I am using just odd words to represent whole concepts in my own mind. And the concepts I'm just trying to get over is trying to visualize where things like the nose should be. I'm not clearly seeing it or interpreting it from the reference image. And in doing that, that's making it difficult to translate onto the wood. The asymmetric nature of his markings don't help. The fact that I've got light colours here, that what I'm going to do is the light colours are also pushing that part of his face in order forward. They're sort of making it really stand forward. I'm going to just, because otherwise I'm throwing this, abandoning this. I'm just going to try and do some shading to try and push his muzzle back a bit. So we've got some shadow underneath here. It's white fur. I have no intention of trying to represent white fur the same way I've already done the dark fur. So I'm just going to be applying the shading really to, and the white fur will be sort of smooth, very much like I did on Junior. So I'm going to see if I can just push the shapes back, because darker areas look to be further away from you. Generally speaking, sometimes it can be used to make something look really close, but generally speaking, darker areas you interpret as being further away. So if I am able to darken the area just underneath his chin here, or his muzzle, which this is part of his, well, it's part of his chest really, and then darken his muzzle down a little bit as well, I'm hoping that will change the face shape in my mind, and I will be able to see things a little more clearly. As I say, if it doesn't work, then I kind of haven't lost anything, because I am really considering just abandoning this at the moment. I am trying to recover it because I want to learn, and recovering it will be one of the, will be a learning exercise. If I can do it, that is. Or if I can actually understand what's wrong, even if I can't recover it. So we've got a shadow there. It's a bit like he's blowing his cheeks out, is what it kind of looks like to me at the moment. Which of course he's not doing. So his muzzle here, I want to make this darker, not that dark. That comes from holding the pen, not holding, the pen suddenly touching the wood. As I say, when it's not touching the wood, it warms up a little more because the wood conducts the heat away. So while it's down, it's keeping cooler than it does than if I lift the pen off. So if you're not careful, when you having the pen been off the wood for a while and you put it back on, you get a darker mark than you might have intended. I want this to be dark-ish because I want to apply some colour to the white area, which I don't want to be particularly dark, but it does. This needs to be darker than that, so it's not the absolute colour I'm after, it's the difference in colour that I'm after. So having done that, what I can now do is apply some colour around the side here. Underneath, where the underneath is slightly shaded. Trying to keep a nice smooth curve. And this area is sort of in a light shadow. Not much of one, but just a light shadow. So I'm just trying to apply a little bit of colour to the wood, but not a great deal. It's almost just sweating the wood a little bit here. I'm not really applying much colour, but I am drawing some of the liquid out onto the surface. So it's a bit like it's wet. Although there's no actual freestanding liquid. So So just a really light colour which may or may not be visible on stream. I think you can possibly see a bit of it. From looking on the preview, it looks like I haven't been particularly consistent in colour. It looks stripy almost. Okay, it's helping a little bit, but it really is only a little bit. That around there isn't quite right. Hey William, 92, good evening, and how are you this evening? Hope you're not having too much of a problem with the stream. There's been all sorts of problems this evening with people watching, getting buffering problems and things. I'm having total problems with this piece. I just cannot get it to look like the cat. There's something really off with the shapes. I'm now resorting to almost making it up. I've sort of recognised that the asymmetric nature of the face patterns has thrown off some of my skills, if you like, and that's been a fairly large part of the problem. The fur angles are certainly not right, and that's also throwing off the look of the face. And I am oh dear. Okay, Bubbles. Well, sorry you've had such a problem this evening. Hopefully it'll be better. I should catch you a little bit later. I may just drop in, depending on. I'll probably watch you, depending on quite how quiet your microphone is. I might not chat, but I might. I'll probably watch what you're doing. But have a good stream. I hope you don't have the same problems I've been having tonight. And drop in tomorrow and see what I've decided to do about this. Thank you, William, for that vote of confidence, but I'm kind of thinking it's misplaced. I'm trying to rescue this because I think it's a good thing to learn, but by the way, I've dropped in on your stream a couple of times over the past few days. I've noticed you've been streaming, William, but not being able to tell what you were doing, and you being, I think you were listening to music, so I kind of left after about 5 or 10 minutes because I couldn't work out what was going on. You might feel, because it's my opinion, not, you do what you like, of course, you might wish to consider explaining a little bit more about what you're doing while you're doing it, if that's something you're comfortable with. that of course assumes that other people are doing what I do, which may or may not be the case at all. Don't mean to jump on you or anything like that. Yeah. Oh, okay. I've just been unlucky then, I guess, on the days. Because it's kind of looked as though it would be it would be interesting to know what you were doing if I understood what you were doing, if you know what I mean. Because I looked at it and gone, well, that looks interesting, but I can't follow it. I know it's really hard to talk to an empty stream, so it can be discouraging. Or when nobody gives feedback, and of course I wasn't giving any feedback either. I'm wondering if this is starting to look like a fox now. Oh dear. He's looked completely weird, and he's looked like a bear. Now it's starting to look a bit fox-like. So I'm just trying to darken off the nose, to see if I can build away from the nose. I think I've got the right angle for it now, or the right placing for it. If anybody wasn't in the stream earlier, I was scraping away at this, so that's kind of the white lines you might see just up the side of the nose here, erasing it basically, and trying to work out the placement. Because of the nature of me applying texture here, erasing, which normally wouldn't be a really good thing to do, because of the difficulty of keeping the wood surface, the erasing here just that kind of adds to the texture, so it hasn't been particularly problematic to use it. And indeed I learnt something that if I scrape the nose area here, I scraped because I took off what was already there, but now when I've applied heat I've got a really smooth surface, so smoother than it was previously, so that kind of learnt that maybe that's something for the future when I want a really smooth surface. If I scrape it down first, then apply the heat, that seems to iron it, shall we say, and make it quite nice and smooth. So the pussycat itself is extremely dark brown, which looks like black in most lights. So I kind of want really, as fur which is as dark as Junior. Junior is a black cat, so it would be nice to get this colour down there. But then I have to create the shapes that you see from the fur textures, which means that they certainly have to be right. Okay, sorry I've been a bit yes, it is well, yes and no. Yes and no. It is electrically heated, and it depends on the soldering iron. The way that this works is the element, the heater bit, is actually the tip. So this tip is made out of a compound, or a nichrome compound. Nichrome has a relatively high resistance for metal, the alloy does, and so it has a resistance of a few ohms. If you pass current through a resistor, it generates heat. That's basically its job. It turns electricity into heat. Nichrome is quite successful at doing that, and the amount of current that we're passing through means it heats up quite a bit. So this is probably approaching well into 200 degrees Celsius. And it can, if I turn the current up, you probably could get this to glow orange. Now, most soldering irons use a coil of wire, and they do it within basically wrapped around a metal core, and they heat the metal core, and the metal core then is in contact with the tip, so the heat's transferred into the tip. So it's like what they call a heater cartridge, and they do that because it's more efficient and it's cheaper, but it's more efficient, and the heat, by heating a metal core, that core holds the heat. So when you put your tip onto what it is you're soldering, the heat doesn't suddenly disappear. If I put this down onto something like a metal plate, for example, the heat would just vanish. It'd be virtually cold. There's not enough retained heat to be able to keep it like a soldering iron. There is a soldering iron which the make that first brought them out is called Weller. It was like a gun. You squeeze the gun, and your soldering iron was about 100 watts of heat, and it literally the tip heated up in a matter of seconds. So the Weller instant heat guns work on the same principle. Most soldering irons, however, use the heater cartridge and then conduct the heat down to the tip. But yes, we're passing about, I'm guessing somewhere around 5 amps of current at about somewhere between 1.5 and 3 volts down into here. So we're generating probably about 15 watts of power. So most good soldering irons will be in excess of 30 watts, but you can get some of the cheaper soldering irons for beginners, shall we say, for electronic use would be about 15 watts of power, so something about the same sort of heat rating. So I hope that answers the question. Right, okay. It's being a little bit harder to take the colour now, because having scraped the surface it doesn't react quite the same. Well, for that to look successful, I've got to do a bit more. That's still a bit too pointy, is his face there. Just moving the bridge of the nose backwards a bit. I'm now doing this along what does it look like, rather than trying to follow the pattern of the reference image I'm working from, which generally speaking is a bad idea, but given that I probably would abandon this anyway, the fact that I'm doing that doesn't overly concern me. You know, I am now, if you like, working from imagination. I'm not really following the cat that I was doing. So this has turned, at this moment in time, it's turned from a commission piece into a practice piece, and I'll restart the commission on another piece of wood. Possibly. Obviously, I can't vouch for the ability or inability to avoid the hot end, but it is a hot end, you know. And to some extent, you know, I ask you, when you're drawing, or when you're using, you know, you're working on a not a drawing board, you're using one of these things, so you're working on the tablet, the drawing tablet. Do you poke yourself with the end of that? You know, if you're using a pencil, do you stick the pencil in your finger? Because when you're holding this, it's a bit like a pencil. Yes, it's hot, and I mean, occasionally I might have to sort of, you know, if I'm waving my hands about, I might have to be careful. Or if I do something like, which I might do with a pencil, sort of just keep it in my hand while I hold it up to my face, you know, hold my hand up to my face while I'm thinking about something, then possibly. But generally speaking, I don't even think about the end being hot. I am a little bit conscious of it, especially if I can feel the heat coming up my fingers. But otherwise, no, you probably wouldn't. I think you'd be fairly safe. The bigger ones, though, there is the soldering iron type pyrography tools. I've been closer using soldering irons because you're either holding a piece or you're holding solder, which is metal, so it conducts heat, so you tend to heat your fingers up really rapidly. But I've been closer to doing that with a soldering iron. Now, whether you'd have the same problem with a soldering iron based pyrography tool, because you're holding it further back, it's a bit like holding a pencil up here, which is kind of a bit harder to control. But even then, I guess I've no real reason to have my left hand anywhere near the piece I'm working on, so, or the bit I'm working on, so maybe not. Now, widening the nose a little bit, it looked a bit narrow just around here, it didn't quite join onto the tip, so I'm just widening it slightly. So this has really become an imagination piece. As I said, it's not really a commission piece anymore. If it comes out at the end, then you know, it may well be redesignated as such, and I'll have learnt a lot. But otherwise, this piece is destined for the round portfolio. Okay, so if I now make sure this curves up the face, then the text, make sure the textures follow the curve. Go upwards here, because there's quite a step from the nose, but how cats usually hold their faces slightly down means you don't always see that quite sharp change of direction just at the bridge of the nose up over the top of the head. trying to avoid looking at the markings on the face because I know they're asymmetrical, and I think that threw me off when I was doing this before. So I'm just continuing sort of the nose line up now. We're way above the nose now, so I'm really just trying to establish shapes in my mind and hopefully see them on the wood in front of me, so that I can then continue to follow them. So we're going to, and we then come down around, so nose to about there, yeah, so that's got to continue up just there, and working out, trying to work the edges, see where they are. So the edge is about, that's about where the edge of the nose is there. A lot of the edge of the nose is kind of hidden. But then sort of just comes away from the nose edge. So the kind of the edge, you see the edge of the nose because of the change of direction of the fur. So let's see if I can replicate that here. Now the nose is actually darker than that fur is, but I'm not going to be able to achieve that, I don't think. We shall see. So, if the fur's coming away from it in that direction, this goes over the head in that direction, so the fur coming up here around the bridge of the nose is roughly in the right format. Curls up and over the eye. Curls up and no, it doesn't go over the eye. It goes in and goes away from the eye. No. Now I am giving up on this piece. I'm going to abandon this piece. Oh, I'm glad that I have a really calming voice. I was sort of getting quite agitated earlier on. I'm glad it's not coming over in my voice. I'm going to put this piece to, I'm actually not going to throw it away, because I think I will come back to it, possibly off stream, or maybe at some point on stream, and just try and do some more work on it, just to try and, for practice purposes, because it's just not working. I think what I'm going to do there is abandon it. This is kind of a commission, if you like. My wife asked me to do it as a companion piece to Junior, but it's she's already seen it and doesn't think it looks right, and I didn't think it looked right, and I haven't been able to recover it. And I'm thinking that my best bet is to abandon it for the initial purpose, and then maybe take another look at it, cool off for a little bit, so to speak, perhaps do another cat, or another image of Felix, and then see how that goes. Maybe come back to this one It's sort of looking a bit better now with the nose repositioned. I think it was too far off to one side, as I've mentioned before. The pattern, the facial patterning is asymmetric. It's off to one side, and it kind of it's whilst it's asymmetric, it's kind of symmetrical but off center, and you kind of I think that kind of fooled things up. Fooled my vision a little bit, and I did the nose at the wrong angle, which made the face look like it had been pushed in. And these white areas here, white areas really stick out when you look at something, and they were sticking out inappropriately, shall we say, and that perhaps was throwing things off as well. I've darkened things down a little bit, just a little, where the shadows are, and that's helped the interpretation a little bit. Now the face is wider than it looks here, and I think that's possibly the textures here need to come out more on the side before going around, and that might change the look a little bit. It's sort of, it's almost as though the head is on a curve instead of a head being straight. Your eyes, your nose and your mouth are all sort of straight, if you like, in a straight line. It's as though you've drawn a curve, and then your eyes are here, your nose is here, and your mouth's over here, and it's kind of like what's happened to the face here. The ears, which are pointing forwards, and he has got his ears sort of more or less pointing forward, so because he's concentrating on something, so he's listening to it. So his ears and his eyes should be pointing in the same direction. And when you look at it, it's sort of his mouth, which is here, is you follow the line through, and it's a curved line. It should be more or less a straight line, give or take the fact that you actually come down the skull. But if you were to sort of draw the relative lines, so your skull line is sort of like that, down there, so that would be the centre of the skull. The centre of the nose should be roughly parallel to it. I mean, you can see the centre of the skull and the ears are sort of symmetrical to one another. The centre of the nose should be roughly symmetric to it, not quite, because they're not actually at the same angle, but I mean, if I do that, that's the nose angle. It looks sort of too high an angle, maybe just off slightly. It's now directly between the eyes where it wasn't before, and that's improved things. But let's say I'm seeing this sort of slightly curved look, which I don't understand where that's come from, because effectively I took the image and transferred the outline directly onto the wood, so I know the edges are in the right place. So it's just something about probably the texturing that's been done that's thrown this off. So I may look for a different picture and start another piece tomorrow, but I shall have a think about what we do. But anyway, so despite my problems with this, and unfortunately the problems with Twitch this evening, I hope the people who are watching have enjoyed, and I hope to see you on another stream where I am more successful. I suspect Bubbles the Monkey and 3D Bloke are both streaming now. Both are excellent streamers, so anybody who is watching, I suggest you go check those two streamers out. Bubbles will be doing a sword in beads, perler type beads, and 3D block. I think he's doing a freehand airbrush, sort of a triptych. That's 3 pieces of art that sort of joined together, if you like. 3 canvases, 3 separate canvases that form one picture. And he's doing it. It looks somewhat like a freehand sort of mask or dream-like face, which looks like it's going to be quite good. So apart from that, thank you all, and I'll hope to see you again on another stream. Bye.